Good morning, you're watching Daybreak with me, Nadia Jani.
And me, Lou Brown, and we're ready to wake you up with all the key headlines from across the world and in the region.
Here are your top stories. Trump says good chance to end war in Ukraine after key talks are held in Florida.
Devastating floods hit Asia with at least 900 killed and hundreds more missing.
And Pope heads to Lebanon for his first international visit. First this morning, diplomatic efforts between Washington and Kyiv are entering a critical phase as both sides search for a workable path toward ending the conflict. The talks held in Florida were attended by National Security Council Secretary Rustem Umerov, Ukraine's new chief negotiator. Also at the meeting were President Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner.
The latest meeting seems to have brought cautious optimism as US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says talks with Ukraine over a deal to end the war were productive, but there's more work to be done. Here's more on that story.
A high-level meeting between US and Ukrainian officials in Florida on Sunday was very productive, according to US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He says while progress is evident, significant work remains to end Russia's war in Ukraine.
As I told you earlier this morning, our goal here is to end the war, but it's more than just to end the war. We don't just want to end the war, we also want to help Ukraine be safe forever, so never again will they face another invasion, and equally importantly, we want them to enter an age of true prosperity.
Speaking just hours later, President Donald Trump said that broader peace discussions with Russia are going along well.
Well, we want to stop people from being killed. Doesn't have much to do with us, but I'd like to see if we can save a lot of souls. A lot of people are being killed. Last month we had 27,000 people killed in that ridiculous war that should have never happened. It would have never happened if I were president.
The Florida talks came after nearly 2 weeks of negotiations based on a US peace plan, as both sides work to outline a path that keeps Ukraine fully sovereign and independent. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is expected to meet with Russian representatives later this week as part of the ongoing diplomatic push. Sunday's session marked a shift on the Ukrainian side, with National Security Council Secretary Rustem Umerov taking over as chief negotiator. He stepped in after the resignation of Andriy Yermak, who left his post amid a corruption scandal in Kiev.
Thankful to President Trump's super team that is supporting us. We are discussing about the future of Ukraine, about the security of Ukraine, about no repetition of aggression of Ukraine, about prosperity of Ukraine, about how to rebuild Ukraine. And we are thankful for the efforts of United States and its team to helping us. US is hearing us, US is supporting us, US is walking beside us.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he expected the talks to build on earlier meetings in Geneva, where Ukraine had already offered its counter-proposal to the US plan. The negotiations are taking place as Kyiv faces growing pressure from advancing Russian forces and a political crisis at home triggered by a major corruption probe in the energy sector.
We're now going to take a look at the stories that are shaping the day with our press review, and we start first with a news website. And US-Ukraine hold productive peace talks in Florida as new Kyiv negotiator takes lead. So our first story was also covering that, and just to state, Marco Rubio says US-Ukraine negotiations were productive, but there are significant issues that remain unsolved. Rubio also stressed any deal must secure Ukraine's long-term sovereignty, security and economic stability. So there's a number of different things within this plan that they are still trying to work through. Trump claims negotiations are moving well and suggests a deal is possible in the coming weeks. So we will see whether or not they can make it to Christmas with a gift to say that peace has actually come, or whether or not things will still be continuing on between both sides.
Yes, we can just see Donald Trump speaking here on Air Force One. In that video we previously played as our top story, he was speaking, saying he's hopeful this peace deal will come through. And now the biggest sticking point point is the status of territories occupied or annexed by Russia. That might be the Donbass and Crimea as well. A source close to the Ukrainian team describes the talks as not easy but constructive, and Putin will soon receive US negotiators, Steve Witkoff, we believe next week, as part of an intensified shuttle diplomacy aimed at narrowing the gaps of those issues. Now I think we can look at our next story. I believe it's the same story, like Nadia, you lead.
Yes, so I think BBC is also leading with this story on their front of their page on their website, also stating that talks were held in Florida yesterday, over the weekend rather, and being productive, but more work is needed to be done. So we know that Umarov, who is the new chief negotiator for Ukraine, says the US is hearing and supporting Ukraine, calling the discussion successful despite difficult areas. So navigating through the differences of what is actually going to remain in Ukraine's possession, especially with what Russia also is demanding, is still up for discussion. So it's something that they are working toward.
Yeah, I'll just finalise this with Zelensky is expected to meet French President Emmanuel Macron next week to coordinate Western positions. We know the Coalition of the Willing has been very vocal and very has a lot of input during this process. This comes as the war has killed and injured tens of thousands and displaced more than 7 million refugees since 2022. The dispute tracks back to 2014 with Russia's annex of the Crimea. So the latest developments are those talks are productive, but still not concrete as of yet. Let's have a look at our next story, Nadia, and I'll let you take it away.
Yes, so the next story should be CNN's website, and it's talking about the human impact of the deadly storms which ravage Asia, killing over 900 people, and hundreds are still missing. So the areas that have been in particularly hit in regards to these floods is Indonesia, with 435 dead and 406 people missing. Then we go to Thailand with 162 deaths and 3.5 million people being affected by that. And Sri Lanka, who's actually, the government has declared it as a state emergency, with 334 people killed and over 1 million people impacted. And lastly, Malaysia, with 2 deaths and tens of thousands evacuated. So this part of Asia has really seen a lot of flash flooding and impacted many people, as I've just stated there.
Yes, very affecting the whole region and the continent, really, to devastating effect. If we have a look at these images here, we can see the devastation, the homes destroyed, what are people's normal livelihoods. I'll just jump in on a rare tropical system formed in the Malacca Strait, intensifying rainfall in Indonesia, as we can see there in Thailand and Malaysia. Now, Sri Lanka was struck by a separate storm. You're right in saying they have declared a state of emergency, and meteorologists are pointing to 2 active systems interrupting and amplifying regional extremes. So this is one of the worst hit areas and one of the worst we've seen in the region in a long time. And the death toll and those missing is still yet to be confirmed, and we will keep an eye on that as that comes through as well.
Indeed. We'll now turn to the next story, which is from France 24, and we look at the key developments from the Trump and Maduro revelation. So Trump confirms he had a call with Maduro, Venezuela's president, who slams US attack preparations. So Trump confirmed recently that he spoke on the phone with Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, but refuses to disclose what they discussed. Trump said the conversation was neither good or bad, offering no further detail, and Washington has accused Maduro of enabling drug trafficking to the US, allegations Maduro has denied. And we know there's been a lot of US troops situated in different parts of the Caribbean most recently, so there's a lot of eyes and attention on what that actually looks like and what that means.
Yes, I'll just add to that as well. So you perfectly introed me there, Nadia. The US has built up forces in the Caribbean. We know that the largest destroyer in the world is actually in the Caribbean, which I read this morning, carried out, but that comes as the US carried out months of strikes on suspected drug-carrying boats. That is not yet confirmed either. Now, human rights groups condemn these strikes as unlawful extrajudicial killings, and even some US allies expressing concern. Now, Trump says he will investigate whether US forces carried out a second strike that killed survivors, and he would not have wanted such action. But definitely where the US is mobilizing and where they are having their strongest rhetoric and actions towards is Venezuela, and we will keep an eye on Maduro and Trump's dialogue at this moment.
Indeed. Now we're going to head to our next story, also making the headlines today, is Honduras election. So Trump's threat casts shadow as polls open. It does seem that wherever Trump goes, it makes a headline story. But we're still staying within South America. And Honduras, they've held a general election, effectively narrowing a three-way race with, I'll just name the candidates, Rixi, Moncada, Salvador Nasralla, which is a Liberal Party, and Nasro Tito Asfura, which is the National Party. And Trump has actually openly backed Asfura and threatens to cut US aid if he loses, raising allegations of foreign interference. So it's one of those things that we are looking at. Also to state that all candidates have pledged that job creation, investment and anti-corruption efforts, while Nasralla also vows to break ties with China and Venezuela.
Yes, quite an interesting point, and you're very right in saying that Donald Trump, whatever he says, whatever input he has, he will make a headline, and Honduras is no different. Now, Trump warns aid cuts and frames the race as part of a fight against narco-communists, escalating tensions as well. Now, the US has already reduced significant portions of its economic and governance aid to Honduras. And I'll just finish with the National Electoral Count just urges parties to avoid this inflammatory rhetoric amid fears of violence, domestic violence in Honduras at this point.
Great. Well, that's the press roundup for now. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll catch up with the rest of the global stories. Stay with us.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
And welcome to Primetime. What a show we've got lined up for you. In a complex world, clarity is power. Two hours live, diplomacy dissected in a spin-free environment. That's Prime Time with me, Guy Schoen, weekdays on A News.
Welcome back to Daybreak. Now let's take a look at the rest of the global stories. Kazakhstan on Sunday condemned a Ukrainian drone attack on the Black Sea terminal of the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, which damaged infrastructure and halted exports. Ukraine said the strike targeted Russian assets and was not directed at Kazakhstan. The consortium is owned by Russia, Kazakhstan and the US, which handles more than 1% of the global oil. The terminal is a key route for Kazakhstan's crude exports.
Staying on Ukraine, its Chief of Staff, Andriy Yermak, resigned on Friday after an anti-corruption raid on his home. He was one of President Zelensky's most influential advisors and the lead negotiator in talks with the US and Russia. Our report explains his decision to quit and what it means for Kyiv's diplomatic track.
President Volodymyr Zelensky's Chief of Staff, Andriy Yermak, has resigned just hours after anti-corruption officers searched his Kyiv apartment as part of a $100 million energy sector kickback probe. According to investigators, the scheme involved illegal contracts, inflated procurement deals and pressure on state-owned companies, including the nuclear operator Enerhoatom. Yermak isn't accused, but the scandal has already forced ministerial dismissals and stirred public anger. Yermak has been Zelensky's closest ally for more than a decade, first as his lawyer in the media industry, later as a key strategist of his 2019 presidential campaign, and finally as the man leading Kyiv's wartime negotiations. Inside Ukraine, he has often been described as the most influential official after the president. Washington is pushing Kyiv to accept concessions in Trump's peace plan. Yermak's exit comes at a sensitive moment as US officials head into new talks with Moscow.
There will be a reset of the office of the President of Ukraine. Andriy Yermak has submitted his resignation. I am grateful to Andriy because Ukraine's position on the negotiating track was always presented exactly as required. It was always a patriotic position. But I want there to be no rumors or speculation. As for the new head of the office, tomorrow I will hold consultations with those who may lead this institution. Soon, there will be negotiations. There will be our representatives, the Chief of the General Staff, the Foreign Ministry, the National Security Council, and our intelligence.
Zelensky says consultations on a new chief of staff will begin immediately. Military, diplomatic and security officials are expected to take part in upcoming US and Russia talks. The president says Ukraine must remain internally united as the country faces what he called an external challenge, the war, stressing that all institutions must stay focused on defence.
That's quite interesting, isn't it? Everything that's going on in Ukraine right now when it comes to fraudulent activity, people resigning, and also at the same time trying to end a war that they're at the brink of with, you know, Russia and US involvement.
Yeah, I've read some reports which are stating that some analysts are saying that it's quite healthy for democracy to dispose people who are coming under corruption trials that quickly. So obviously the Ukraine has a lot of US backing, a lot of Western backing as well, and they can't support a country which doesn't embody their values.
Right.
So if they're disposing people who are on corruption scandals, it does, you know, it shows that they're believing in a good country that's willing to uphold the values.
Yeah, and I guess also being transparent about it. Obviously, this is never good news when you find out someone close. Like, I think it was quite a high up person, because now they've got a new chief negotiator, Rustem Umarov, who's now stepped into that role. So to have someone quite high up is quite also embarrassing.
Likely the most important role in Ukraine at this point in time, like specifically these past few weeks.
Yeah.
You want your negotiator firing on all cylinders. You don't want to be having a turnover of staff, do you?
Which is why everything happened quite quickly, which is why they have a new chief negotiator in place, and hopefully that will just kind of like clear the dust and hopefully just focus in on ending the war. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll just finish on this point. He was actually an ally of Zelensky before Zelensky became president, so they were friends. Have you seen the man? He's a very towering figure. And he was an intellectual property lawyer for in Ukraine and an ally of Zelensky. So Zelensky held no bars when deciding to get rid of him. Okay, well, we'll definitely keep watching and taking more of a closer look into that. But now let's turn to Lithuania. And Lithuania's Vilnius airport temporarily halted operations on Sunday due to suspected balloons in its airspace, marking the latest in a series of flight disruptions in the Baltic nation. European aviation has repeatedly faced chaos in recent months because of drone sightings. Vilnius airport has been closed at least 10 times since early October. The Baltic country says weather balloons flown by smugglers are being used to transport contraband, cigarettes, and blames Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko for allowing the practice, calling it a form of hybrid attack, a claim Lukashenko denies.
Now, tens of thousands of people took to the streets of Gießen in Germany at the weekend, where clashes broke out between police and demonstrators protesting against the far-right Alternative for Germany Party youth group. Officers were deployed in large numbers as protesters tried to block access to a new AfD youth congress. Here's more.
Scuffles broke out between police and demonstrators in the German city of Gießen as thousands gathered to protest the launch of a new youth organisation of the far-right Alternative for Germany, the AfD. Protesters blocked a highway bridge leading to the venue, prompting police intervention. German media say as many as 50,000 protesters were expected. while 6,000 police officers were deployed nationwide. Crowds carrying Antifa banners chanted against the AFD, with officers pushing back and water cannons positioned nearby. The tensions coincided with the AFD's plan to elect a leader for its new youth wing. The party's previous youth organisation was dissolved earlier this year after intelligence services labelled it confirmed right-wing extremist, prompting the AFD to formally distance itself. Unions, left-wing parties and activist groups joined the counter-protests, accusing the AFD of fueling racism and anti-immigrant sentiment. The party currently polls at 27% nationwide, according to ZDF's latest survey.
Pope Leo XIV has arrived in Beirut on Sunday as part of his first international trip as pontiff. He urged calm and dialogue at a time when Lebanon is under growing pressure from the escalating regional violence.
Pope Leo XIV urged political leaders in Lebanon to make peace their highest priority in a country that remains a target of Israeli airstrikes. The pontiff made the comment on his second leg of his first overseas trip as Catholic leader. He met with Lebanese officials on Sunday, including the Parliament Speaker, Prime Minister and President. Addressing a chamber packed with politicians and religious leaders, Pope Leo praised the resilience of the Lebanese people.
Everywhere in the world around us, certainly there are millions of Lebanese here and throughout the world who serve peace silently day after day. Yet you who have important institutional tasks within this nation are destined for a special beatitude if you can say that you have put the goal of peace above all else. You are a people who do not give up, but in the face of trials, you always know how to rise again with courage.
His visit comes a week after Israeli airstrikes hit the Lebanese capital. Standing beside the Pope, Lebanon President Joseph Aoun delivered a defiant message. His remarks underscored the sense of siege many Lebanese feel amid ongoing instability.
Lebanese President Joseph Aoun, Your Holiness, tell the world on our behalf that we will not die, we will not depart, we will not despair, and we will not surrender. We will remain here, breathing freedom, creating joy, mastering love, embracing innovation, chanting for modernity, and forging each day a fuller life.
Meanwhile, Lebanese citizens and visitors lined the streets to catch a glimpse of Pope Leo as his motorcade passed through Beirut. Lebanon is home to the largest Christian community in the Middle East and has been deeply shaken by the recent escalation between Israel and Hezbollah, fueling fears of a wider confrontation.
Israel's opposition leader Yair Lapid has urged President Isaac Herzog not to grant Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu a pardon. The appeal follows Netanyahu's request amid his ongoing corruption trial.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has submitted a request to the country's president, Isaac Herzog, seeking a pardon in his years-long corruption trial. The Prime Minister has been on trial for 5 years across 3 separate corruption cases, including charges of bribery, fraud and breach of trust. Netanyahu denies all charges and argues that the criminal proceedings are hindering his ability to govern, saying a pardon would serve the interests of Israeli society.
The state of Israel faces great challenges alongside great opportunities. In order to push away the threats and realise the opportunities, a national unity is required. The continuation of the trial is tearing us apart from the inside, is stirring heated controversies, intensifies rifts. I am sure, like many others among the people, that the immediate end of the trial will help a lot in lowering the flames and in promoting a wide reconciliation that our country needs so much.
Netanyahu's request has not gone unchallenged, while the Office of Israel's president says it will process the request according to standard practice. Opposition leader Yair Lapid has urged Herzog not to grant a pardon.
From here I call on President Herzog. You cannot pardon him without an admission of guilt, an expression of remorse and an immediate retirement from the political life.
Meanwhile, protesters rallied outside Herzog's private residence on Sunday night against Netanyahu's petition. Demonstrators say the Prime Minister is attempting to avoid taking responsibility for his actions.
We're here to demonstrate and tell Buzzi Herzog, the President, that we are aware that he is a weak point in our battle for democracy in Israel. What Netanyahu is asking is not for a pardon. He is asking that his trial will be completely cancelled without taking any responsibility, without paying the price for how he tore up this country and how he eventually brought to the massacre of 7 in October.
There is no precedent for a presidential pardon for a sitting Prime Minister. Analysts say doing so in an election year could set a problematic chain of events in motion, blurring the line between the presidency and politics. The next election is due by next October, and many polls indicate that his coalition, the most right-wing in Israel's history, would struggle to win enough seats to form a government.
Floods and landslides are wreaking havoc across Southeast Asia, pushing the regional death toll past 900. Millions remain at risk as Sri Lanka declared a state of emergency after Cyclone Ditwa triggered severe flooding and mass evacuations. On Indonesia's Sumatra Island, at least 442 people have been killed, with rescue teams still struggling to reach those trapped.
Hundreds are dead and missing in Southeast Asia, where some of the heaviest rain in decades has swept the region. Sri Lanka is facing the severe aftermath of Cyclone Ditwa. On Saturday, military forces were deployed to assist residents stranded in floodwaters.
It rained non-stop for 3 days. We heard about the warnings of flooding, but we didn't expect water levels would get this high. As usual, we moved our belongings that could be moved to a higher level, but that didn't help. Everything is underwater.
Floodwaters continue to rise on Sunday in Sri Lanka's capital, Colombo. Officials say thousands of people from low-lying areas have been evacuated. Authorities report that Cyclone Ditwa has killed at least 330 people, while 200 are still missing. More than 500,000 people across the country have been affected.
Flood levels are increasing in some areas, and I am requesting people in those areas to be vigilant and evacuate their homes. Don't try to stay in your homes since water levels are rising.
The Disaster Management Centre says more than 108,000 people have been relocated to nearly 800 relief centres, most of which have been set up in schools. Officials are helping with relief efforts, including food distribution and rescue operations. Monsoons, exacerbated by tropical storms, has caused some of the worst flooding in years, with millions affected in Indonesia, Malaysia and Thailand. The death toll from floods and landslides on Indonesia's Sumatra Island has risen to 442. Roads remain blocked and internet and electricity are only partly working. Cyclone Senya caused heavy damage in 3 provinces. In West Sumatra, Mary Osman was swept away by rising waters, but survived by clinging to a clothesline. Rescue efforts are difficult due to bad weather. Tens of thousands have been evacuated, but hundreds are still trapped. Authorities are calling for a national disaster declaration to speed up the response. In Thailand's Songkhla province, floodwaters rose 3 metres and Hat Yai received 335 millimetres of rain in a single day, the highest in 300 years. As waters receded, the death toll rose, and hospitals had to move bodies to refrigerated trucks.
Turning to something a little different in the UK, have you ever lost something while travelling? You're in a rush and forgot to collect your hat, umbrella, or even your wallet? Well, UK's Transport for London keeps these items in a huge lost property warehouse in the east of the capital, hoping their owners will come and collect them. 6,000 items arrive weekly, including some very weird and wacky things. Some finds include a wedding dress, an artificial limb, and lots of bike helmets. After 3 months, the company decides whether to auction them or give them to charity or schools. Here's more.
In this room we keep all mobile phones, as you can see, the mobile phones here. Over here we have laptops, mobile phones and iPads. So the most common item is bags, but the most favourite item that everyone talks about when they come here is umbrellas. I presume because London's known for the wet weather. I always say miracles happen on Transport for London because, as you can see, you've got a few wheelchairs. One of my staff was going through a bag and they found a bag of cooked frogs. Yeah, cooked frogs. Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Now, before we dive into the Good Samaritans that are doing this lost and found, have you ever left something on public transport?
I have. I left my actual, well, it's called an Oyster card, which is just like a train or a bus ticket that you can get from place to place. And as I got off the bus, I realised, and I ran all the way to the bus station in hope, because there's a loop, in hope that I'll catch up with the bus, and I did.
You must have had a lot of credit on this Oyster card.
It was tough times.
Yeah, I remember the days of the Oyster card. That was my childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these things we saw in those pictures. What's the most surprising thing you think Lost and Found?
Well, she just mentioned the lady speaking there, the manager of the actual Lost and Found. They found cooked frogs in a bag.
Cooked frogs?
Cooked frogs
That's
in a bag.
That's a practical joke, isn't it?
I was like, oh my gosh, they're perishable items. A wheelchair, like our director just said, who was able to leave a wheelchair? It's true, like miracles do happen. I just thought, and then on top of that, loads of umbrellas. Did you see that whole mount of umbrellas?
It's not surprising considering any public transport, even wherever you are in the world, you're just squished and you
forget stuff.
And you're just rushing off.
But then who forgets a mobile phone or a laptop?
That's an expensive mistake. I
mean, and a prosthetic leg, that our director just said. And also, I actually found a laptop when I went to a supermarket, and I handed it. I was the Good Samaritan. I handed it in. It was an Apple, nice new brand new laptop.
If it didn't have a password, would you have taken?
Oh, I didn't even venture. I didn't want to be tempted.
Oh, you see.
But yes, that Lost and Found is lucrative, I would say, for an auction.
Don't they say 9/10 of the law is?
That's not our law. That's what I think that's US law. But either way.
Moving onwards.
Indeed. We're going to take a very short break now. When we return, we'll discuss the regional headlines with a studio guest to help us unpack. You don't want to miss it.
Hello and welcome to Primetime. What a show we've got lined up for you. In a complex world, clarity is power. Two hours live, diplomacy dissected in a spin-free environment. That's Prime Time with me, Guy Schoen, weekdays on A News.
Welcome back to Daybreak. It's 10 minutes to the hour. We're now going to dive into exploring our global story in greater detail. Now to South Asia, and Pakistan has said that while it is ready to contribute to a possible international stabilization force in Gaza, it is not ready to disarm Palestinian resistance group Hamas. they said on Saturday, a news outlet Anadolu reported. Here to discuss what this means is joined by Nadia. Take it away, please.
Yes, so I'm now joined by Dr. Farhat Asif, who is the President Institute of Peace and Diplomatic Studies in Islamabad, Pakistan. Welcome to the programme this morning.
Thank you so much.
My first question in regards to what we just stated is what does Pakistan mean by this statement? Why are they not ready to disarm Hamas?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking this very important question. A few days ago, our Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has said that we are ready to send our forces as part of the ISF, emphasizing that the country's historic role in our UN peacekeeping missions. Primarily, when Ishaq Dar was making this statement, he said that we are not ready to disarm the Hamas and other militant groups there, but primarily the focus is on peacekeeping mission and peace enforcement primarily, and Pakistan is saying that their job is only peacekeeping and not peace enforcement. Primarily, when you look at the peacekeeping missions that Pakistan has been involved over past 75 years of its history, we have been contributing various missions across the world, nearly 40 missions worldwide. We had provided the peacekeeping forces as part of the UN. So this time around, which is very delicate Middle Eastern conflict, this position echoes that informal reservation has been shared by the Deputy Prime Minister, and he said that this is a concern from Pakistan because there is a lot of ambiguous statements and outline or chalk or the plan shared has been remained ambiguous, and also since our being one of the largest Islamic country and having our own Islamic organizations and resistance from the domestic level, Pakistan was kind of reluctant in sharing that there's a disarmament or any local group that there is on the ground. And since it is primarily what has been said is peacekeeping, not peace enforcement.
Thank you for explaining that. But why does Pakistan feel that it's the responsibility of the Palestinian law enforcement agencies to disarm Hamas rather than Pakistan?
It is not just a role and responsibility of Pakistan. As you know, ISF is the coalition of the security forces, stabilization forces, not just Pakistan, it's by many other countries who are contributing their forces. Indonesia has, pledge of 20,000 soldiers and peace enforcement, force there in the entire coalition. So it's not just responsibility of Pakistan. And primarily, when you look at Pakistan's foreign policy and delicate balancing act that Pakistan is currently ongoing, driven by the deep solidarity with the Palestinian cause, as we have been, kind of advocating for the two-state solution and repeatedly condemning the Israel's genocide and war crimes there, a very delicate balance where Pakistan is also balancing with the Western allies, particularly with the United States. As you must have seen that we have a very close relationship and kind of a warmer ties at the moment with the United States. And by committing a troop to a Muslim led force, Pakistan positioned itself as a leader in the Islamic world, potentially enhancing its diplomatic and clout and amid very tough challenges that we are facing at the economic level, and primarily when you look at our both sides of the border, regional level, from our south on west and our eastern side, we are currently facing challenges there with Afghanistan, and we had recently had a war with India. So there's a balancing act that we are trying to make here at home ground and sending troops there at the broader level there in the Middle East. It's a very delicate act, and when you look at those militant groups and those groups there in the ground, it's not just only responsibility of Pakistan, which I think it's a wise decision, or not taking the entire responsibility of disarming such groups, because it is not just Pakistan's responsibility; it's a combined effort by the ISF.
Definitely. And Dr. Asif, just very quickly, my last question to you: that as you mentioned, it's a joint joint effort with Pakistan and a number of other key actors in that. You mentioned a number of challenges as well, especially with what's happening with Pakistan and Afghanistan and the border disputes. But apart from that, aside from that, when you see the stabilization of Gaza, is there any challenges that you think countries like yourself or Indonesia may come across when they decide to put troops together on the Gaza Strip?
I don't see a challenge there inside ISF as a combined group. I don't see a combining challenge, but at the what I will be seeing is that at the home ground, the countries like us, Pakistan, India, Indonesia, and many other countries, they might be facing challenges there at the domestic front, because any kind of hindrance or any kind of progress that we will be making, these groups, they might face a tremendous challenge there at the ground. For example, if you look at Pakistan's example, there's a lot of hindrance and a lot of political level of narrative building is making in Pakistan. Primarily, their sentiments are high, their political risks that the countries are facing, governments who are committing, they're also facing similar kind of challenges based on the fact that how Israel is there in the ground, and there is a lot of coalition building is there. So these countries will be having to reassess their stances on the peace treaty, and they should not be signaling any shift of their mandate, that is they committed on the home ground or at the regional level. So there's a need for the countries. Primarily, they will be risking, any of the shift of the balance might risk their own domestic kind of challenges or risk of outpouring of the sentiments from the home ground. So that is the challenge that I see in the coming days.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Dr. Asif, for your insights and joining me this morning on the programme. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, that wraps up our global talk. We're now going to take a break, and right after, we'll discuss the other key main headline stories. Don't go anywhere.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption. Unfiltered news and analysis from the region and beyond. From Washington to Beijing, Tehran to Kabul, to Tbilisi to Tashkent. Challenges.
Today is the third.
We're with you 24/7, taking you live to the front lines of the day's biggest stories. Welcome to Gabala. Hi, Candy. One important note to this. I'm here. Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Hello, we're recording on the 8th of November.
From Paris,
Dar es Salaam, Tel Aviv,
Washington,
London,
Moscow,
Kyiv, Berlin,
Rio de Janeiro, Beijing, Bangkok, Tbilisi, Tashkent, Almaty, Kazakhstan, Port Sudan, Tehran, Islamabad, Istanbul,
Kabul, Port Emu.
Welcome back. We are now joined by Nick Summerby, our sports correspondent. Welcome, Nick. And I want to kick off first with how has Formula One done this weekend? What can you tell us?
I've turned into a Formula One fanatic. Let me tell you, next weekend is winner take all. You couldn't write it all the way through this. Verstappen from nowhere. Last race in Las Vegas, the McLaren team, both Piastri and Lando Norris, getting disqualified. It came this weekend to Qatar, and it was another mistake from the McLaren team. The safety car came out on lap 7, and then you have a choice. You have to have 2 pit stops between lap 7 till the end of the race. Verstappen took his pit stop. The McLaren team didn't. Verstappen went on and won the race. Piastri second, Lando Norris fourth. So it is all on the last race. It doesn't get any more exciting. Whoever you support. I mean, I look at it and I look at McLaren. It should have really been you first and second. It should have been Lando Norris winning this weekend, his first championship. All of a sudden, all eyes. Forget about any other sport next weekend. It's Abu Dhabi. Verstappen looking for his 5th championship. Lando Norris and Piastri haven't won one yet. So do they have the know-how? Do they know what to do in the heat of pressure? Verstappen, he will be smiling thinking, I've got this one. But then all of a sudden I think, why can't the McLaren team, I'm talking about the dark arts of Formula One, not that I know that. Surely you've got to work together to get the victory, but wow. Wait for next weekend, but it could be anybody. It's going to be so exciting.
And Nick, let's just move over to the Premier League. Now, you know this, every week I talk about Chelsea, and last night we saw a red card, lots of yellows flying around. Chelsea won all, a spirited game, I would say. But what else can you tell us as well from the Premier League?
Do you want me to tell you about that game? I sat and watched it, and there was a feeling about it. There was an edge to it. 2 strong teams. Great result for Chelsea against Barcelona, second in the league. Arsenal just beaten Bayern Munich, the first defeat for Bayern Munich in the Champions League. Let these 2 go at it. Give us something. The referee straight away gets a yellow card here. Let it flow. Let's have a bit of an edge to it. Casido, for me, I think when you slow it down and you look at it with VAR, yeah, it looks nasty. But as the game's going on, it's a tackle when he just catches him. Then all of a sudden, it's a different dimension to the game. Wonderful game, but the referee ruined it for me. But it was advantage this weekend for Manchester City. They managed to get over the line. They were leading 2-0. It went back to 2-2. And then Phil Foden getting his 2nd goal. So they made it down to 5 points. Other results as well. Brighton beating Forest. West Ham, got to say as well, it was a sad occasion. Billy Bonds, we'd like to send all our love out to his family, the legend of the football club. He died over the weekend. So there was a bit of emotions at the game, but it was about Liverpool. Isak getting a goal, Gakpo as well. Spurs under pressure, Thomas Frank. It's disastrous since they've moved into the new stadium. They got beat again at the new stadium with Fulham. Manchester United came from a goal behind to win 2-1. Got to say to Villa, huge, massive to Unai Emery. The way they started off, it was a disaster at the start of the season. Now they're fourth, beating Wolves. Rob Edwards, who's just left Middlesbrough, who are challenging to get in the Premier League, I'm talking about as a manager, is now manager of Wolves. He's got to have made the wrong choice. They're 9 points adrift. They've got no chance. So Middlesbrough could go up and Wolves could go down. Sunderland, my old team, wow, they were losing 2-0 against Bournemouth. Ended up winning 3-2, and they play Liverpool next because this week is a full Premier League schedule as well. But for me, it was advantage Manchester City. Have they got the strength and depth to go all the way? Only time will tell. But I think Chelsea, I think they are in the mix, and obviously Arsenal are the team to beat.
And Nick, what about the European League? What can you tell us about that? What's taking place?
We're all over the place. Everything's going on. Real Madrid, what are they doing? It's faltering all the time. It's 1 win in 5 for them. They could only manage a draw, 1-1 with Girona. Barcelona winning against Deportivo, 3-1. Real Sociedad losing, obviously 2-1 against Villarreal. So if you look at it, it's Barca, Real, Villarreal. So Barca 34, Real 33, and Villarreal 32. Keep your eye on Atletico Madrid, not lost in 7. They are 4th. La Liga, PSG losing again the second time. Marseille could only manage a 2-2 draw, but Lens, they are now top of the league, 31 points with their victory. Paris Saint-Germain second and Marseille in 29. Don't need to say any more about Bayern Munich. It's just getting better and better. I said about the defeat, what they had in the midweek, which was a huge defeat for them against Arsenal, but they won again. Got to keep your eye out for this boy, Lennart Karl. He's 17 years old. Watch this boy play. He was absolutely phenomenal against Arsenal. We have so many stars, and the stars seem to be on the right wing. Lamine Yamal is another one as well. Let me take you as well to Italy. Italy's really eating up. AC Milan at top of the league. Napoli, huge game for Napoli against Roma, beating Roma 1-0 and Inter winning 2-0. So it is Milan, Napoli, Inter and Roma. Roma and Inter on 27 each, Napoli 28 with AC Milan 28. So it is it's eating up. There's something about that Italian league. I think there's a real battle going on there, and obviously you'd have to say about Spain as well. Quite interesting is Paris Saint-Germain not going to get their own way this year.
Well, Nick, Nadia and I have been enamoured by this whole story of Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, so that's another story we're talking about. What can you tell us about the other sporting stories in the world at the moment?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, really, I mean, there's one of them which was a big talking point last week, and it was about Ronaldo. He was supposed to be, because when he played his international game for Portugal, he was supposed to miss 3 games in the World Cup at the end of the season. Well, that's been taken away. There's only coincidence he was with Donald Trump. He was at the White House, but it shows you how powerful Ronaldo is. They need him there. You need it for advertisement. You need it for revenue. You need it for everything. So that 3 games has gone. That's how powerful these footballers are nowadays. And also, just a little one, because we're looking at the stars of the future. Last week was quite an interesting week. It was 20 years since we lost George Best, and 5 years or 6 years since we lost Diego Maradona, to the same day as well. So I just think it's food for thought with these next players coming around at the moment. I said about Billy Bonds as well. And you have to look at Billy Bonds, the legend of West Ham, who died, and just that grit, that honesty. When I say the word honesty, we're losing that in football. You know, you want to battle, you want to see players going at it a little bit, and you want them to be honest. You know, and I think you've met those 3 players there. You know, you have to take a step back, go and watch videos of them, and just and think, wow, are we going to get talent like that again in the future?
Well, thank you very much, Nick, for taking the time to speak with us this morning. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
It's now that time of year when the internet serves up an annual recaps from Spotify Wrapped to the brutal truth about how well we actually kept those New Year's resolutions. And now joining the year-end tradition, and just behind me, Oxford University Press has revealed its word of the year, and it is a rage bait for 2025. It refers to manipulative tactics deployed online to drive engagement, specifically online content deliberately designed to elicit anger or outrage by being frustrating, provocative or offensive. The phrase beat off aura farming and biohack to win the title. Those were put to a public vote before a final decision was taken by Oxford University Press language experts. What do you think of that?
I'm an expert in rage bait. We had this chat. Do you know what rage bait mean before today?
So I know what it means, yes, but I didn't know what the other. So there was aura farming and biohack, all these words and names. I'm just like, really?
No, so I'll give you an example of aura farming.
Okay.
Before we get to the pièce de résistance of rage baits. Aura farming is when you're trying to put on a front or a persona to try and make yourself look good, in essence, in layman's terms, in basic terms. So I'll give the example. If I was sitting here presenting, like, you know, I'd be aura farming that I'm a cool presenter.
I would say the opposite.
No,
but
I don't.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
Biohack, I'm not sure. It sounds like something. I don't know.
Well, rage baiting, and I think we see it all the time online when something very annoying or, as it says, provocative comes up that you can't just go past it. You have to be on your phone, sending out your little tweets or your messages saying, "What is this? What's going on?"
A good example of it, if I were to rage bait you now, I would just go, "The studio can't hear you. The studio can't hear you."
And I'm like, "What?
Yeah?
What?"
They haven't told me. That's a terrible example, but
I know. It's just anything that would get under your skin. So you know who does that best for me? My siblings.
Okay.
Sibling rivalry and rage baiting is a is a high sport in my home.
It's competitive as well.
Very competitive.
When you come from a big family, it's always competitive. Yeah.
Yes.
And my sisters, I'm very good at winding them up.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, then there you go. You are the key rage baiter. But that is the word for the year. I'm sure next year's one will be just as annoying.
Yes, very millennial as well.
That was quite rage baiting for me, and I didn't even realise. Well, thank you for watching Daybreak with me, Nadia Jani.
And me, Lee Brown, from all of us in the studio. Thank you for watching, and see you tomorrow.